Hello, I'm the Irresolute Cartographer, and this is the story of what happened to the Mistresses of Mystery. One of the biggest draws for the Fallout universe is the cultural setting of the United States before the bombs. This strange retro future aesthetic, the early to mid 20th century music, the outlandish science, all come together to create a unique and interesting setting in which the Fallout games take place. It's as though the people of the Fallout universe were living in a future depicted in 1950s comics. A side effect of this is that radio plays are still a prominent form of entertainment in the 2070s in the Fallout universe. Several of these radio plays center on the comic book universe of the Unstoppables, Grognak the Barbarian, the Inspector, Manta Man, the Silver Shroud, and the Mistress of Mystery. Each of these heroes had their own series of comics, but they came together as the Unstoppables to fight their greatest foes. For 26 years, Shannon Rivers served as the beloved voice actress for the Mistress of Mystery. Shannon Rivers was born in Beckley, West Virginia in 2024. In 2047, she landed her first role in a radio play, Invaders from Planet Z. Her innate talent for the work led her star to rise rapidly, allowing her to claim her signature role as Mistress of Mystery in 2051. Not long after she became the Mistress of Mystery, she attended an engineering school benefit in the role of celebrity guest. Though her voice was famous, like many radio personalities, her appearance was generally unknown. She was approached by Frederick Rivers, an architect and inventor, who bent her ear with a stream of consciousness about his work. To his surprise, she was following his every word. The two became friends, and in 2053, they married. They both prized innovation and independent thought, which led them to agree that Shannon's royalties would pay for Frederick's inventing. He spent the coming decades letting his mind roam freely, building anything that he imagined. They made a life in Riverside Manor, southeast of Charleston on Summersville Lake. While Shannon traveled to Los Angeles for work, Frederick would work on his inventions and answer some of her fan mail. Around 2060, the two had a daughter together, Olivia Rivers. Olivia loved her parents, but due to her mother's hectic production schedule, they never got much time together. To make up for these long absences, every year the family would take a camping trip near Seneca Rocks. This yearly tradition was Olivia's favorite time of year. She was able to relax and just be present with her parents. After years of living the good life, the events of 2077 would shake the stability of the family and crack the already tenuous relationship between mother and daughter. While, as previously mentioned, radio plays were a standard form of entertainment in the Fallout universe, technology was advancing. As the 8th season of the Mistress of Mystery was wrapping up in June 2077, there was concern brewing in the staff as the show had not yet been renewed. Hubris Comics, the parent company that had produced the Unstoppables content, had been moving production to television. With uncertainty in the air, Shannon canceled the yearly camping trip, much to Olivia's sorrow. On the morning of June 29, 2077, Frederick had a surprise for Shannon. All year long, he had spent endless hours and a large portion of their fortune working on a project in the manor basement. When he showed Shannon his work, she was stunned. He had built a fully functional lair for the Mistress of Mystery. This feat of engineering including a training room, fabrication room, a council chamber, an infirmary, storage, an office, and most amazingly, a fully functional, intelligent service level supercomputer known as Kryptos. He had managed to land a deal on this computer thanks to DIA budget cuts that left the mainframe homeless. Along with the lair, Frederick had lined up months of experts to train Shannon on everything she would need to know to take the Mistress of Mystery from radio to television. On October 6, 2077, she left for Boston, fully trained and ready to become the Mistress of Mystery on the small screen. This trip ended up being the end of her career. Unfortunately for Shannon, the executives at Hubris wanted a new actress to play the Mistress on television. Worse yet, they were in talks to replace her on the radio as well. She returned home on October 22nd, devastated by the news. While not the creator of the character, she had made the Mistress who she was, and now, at 53, she was losing her to corporate leadership. The very next morning, the old world came to an end in a nuclear exchange that managed to destroy thousands of years of civilization in a couple of hours. Much to Shannon's relief, the whole family was together at home. They descended into the well-stocked basement and rode out the nuclear winter of 2077 to 2078. As the weather calmed, the Rivers family ventured out on a trip to Charleston. On the road, they were accosted by bandits. While Frederick attempted fruitlessly to bargain their passage, one of the raiders touched Olivia. Shannon beat these bandits senseless. Amazed at her mother's skill, Olivia asked her mother to train her as she had been trained. The bond between mother and daughter was never tighter than it would be over the next few months. This renewed relationship would face its first challenge late in the year. Outside Riverside Manor, refugees swarmed the highway heading for Charleston. Some of these refugees inevitably wandered onto the property. On the morning of Friday, November 11, 2078, Frederick found 3 unaccompanied young women in their garage. He and Shannon decided that they would take them in. Olivia was not on board with this decision. They had limited resources. They couldn't take in everyone. Why these three, when they'd turned away their neighbor, Brodie Torrance? Olivia was now competing with three other girls for her mother's attention. This division of Shannon's attention would only increase over the coming months. By April 2079, there were so many girls in Riverside that Olivia was relocated to the guest house. While Shannon and Frederick were giving up their own spaces too, this relocation was not well received by Olivia. The young women the family took in would also be trained alongside her. Shannon used her skill to perform reconnaissance on the region and wage a one-woman war against the raiders. The Rivers family and their new guests watched the events unfold around them, seeing the responders form in Charleston, the raiders of the Savage Divide in the mountains to the east. Eventually, the girls ventured out on supply runs, but Shannon was the only one who took the fight to the raiders. This division of labor would stand until Christmas Day 2082. In the early morning hours, just a short walk northwest of Riverside, a tremendous explosion marked the destruction of the Summersville Lake Dam. Cutthroat raider boss David Thorpe carried out this cataclysmic assault in response to the reported death of his longtime girlfriend, Rosalind Jeffries. Rosalind was said to have died in a raid on Charleston the previous night. Little did he know that when he wiped Charleston off the map, he was drowning his wounded but still living girlfriend within the jail cells of the Capitol Courthouse. This event serves as one of the major turning points in the history of Appalachia in the years after the bombs. The responders would survive, but it would take them years to fully recover. Seeing the destruction led Shannon Rivers to start to convert her orphanage into the Order of Mysteries. Over a dozen mistresses would soon be striking rapidly and retreating into the shadows before their prey knew they were under attack. The Order of Mysteries developed over the coming years, becoming more organized and effective. Olivia was not a fan of the mythos her mother was developing for the mistresses, viewing her as slipping deeper into a fantasy. Despite her objections, though, Olivia performed her role as a mistress with zeal. On a mission to Garhan Mining, she completed her objectives and then went on to clear out snipers' nests, beast dens, and a government bunker, guiding Initiate Rachel along as she worked. Despite Olivia's efforts for the mistresses, Shannon was not amused when she returned from the mission 3 days late. Olivia was having trouble following orders, and Shannon seems to have had a desire to not appear nepotistic in her treatment of Olivia. This conflict characterized their interactions over the next few years. Shannon's training of the mistresses paid off, and the Order operated nearly flawlessly for over 3 years, not losing a single member in the attacks on the raiders. This streak was unfortunately broken in February of 2086, when one of the very first mistresses, Clarissa, was slain. While the group mourned her death, the loss of Clarissa broke something in Olivia. She had spent 3 years killing raiders, over 100 men by May of 2086, but they just kept coming. She had lost a friend to what she was increasingly viewing as a pointless cause, and on May 22nd, her mother's actions finally snapped the last vestiges of the relationship when she appointed another mistress, Eve DeVar, to the leadership position of Mistress of Novices. In Shannon's view, Olivia was expecting nepotistic favor. In Olivia's view, she was the most deserving candidate, and her mother had once again favored anyone but her. Shannon could not have comprehended just how disillusioned Olivia had become with her cause, or she would have treated the relationship with more care. While on a mission scouting the North Cutthroat camp, Olivia recognized a friendly face among the raiders, her old neighbor, Brodie Torrance. She had come to the conclusion that the raiders were living in the real world, devoid of the trappings of fantasy that composed the Order of Mysteries. She wanted a way into the raiders' world, and Brodie would be that way in. She slaughtered his crew and struck up a conversation. She offered him information on the Order if he would get her into the upper ranks of the raiders. Brodie brought this information to an incredulous David Thorpe, who didn't believe a word of it. An entire crew slaughtered by one woman in a comic book outfit? He pushed his doubts aside for the moment, though, and it gave Brodie a chance to run the operation. Brodie and Olivia forged a relationship, meeting in the old presidential cottage at the White Spring. She gave Brodie information on the upcoming Mistress mission to Summersville, leaving him to set up an ambush. David Thorpe had grown displeased with the lack of progress as a month passed, but agreed to one final action, giving Brodie 5 men to work with, telling him, "Come back with the mistress's head, or these men will come back with yours." Mistress Allison Long ended up drawing the Summersville mission. Not wanting to leave it to chance, Olivia ventured to Summersville herself, shadowing Allison the whole way. Brodie's inexperienced raiders failed to execute the ambush properly. Emerging from cover too soon, Allison made quick work of 2 of Brodie's henchmen before turning on Brodie himself. His gun jammed. As Allison made her move, Olivia killed her friend and ally to save Brodie and her relationship with the raiders. She had previously shared secret information. She had now murdered a compatriot. While Shannon and the rest of the mistresses mourned Allison's loss, Olivia was selecting the next 2 missions for ambush. David Thorpe was elated with these 2, as they also resulted in dead mistresses. Olivia plotted her next great betrayal, providing the raiders with every scrap of data she could on the Order. Years before she would go on to betray the Mistresses, Olivia was sent on her first solo scouting mission. She ventured into Sugar Grove Naval Radio Station. Beneath the military facade, she discovered an intelligence base and laboratory. Among the many things she learned there, she discovered the Siphon Holotape, a data storage device designed to allow covert agents to download a copy of every file on a mainframe and take it with them. The holotape not only held the program to copy a network's files, its iridium-infused tape would allow for a significant amount of data to be stored on board when compared to a standard holotape. These incredible devices were an extreme rarity thanks to the iridium tape, which left them coming in at a cost of $15 million apiece. Olivia was going to make full use of hers, and in September 2086, she copied the entirety of the Order of Mystery's mainframe onto a single tape, providing the raiders of Pleasant Valley with an unprecedented understanding of their enemy. From late September to mid-November, the raiders picked off one mistress after another. Shannon could not understand what was happening. Olivia viewed these girls that she had lived with and fought beside for years as mere obstacles to her climb to power. The result of this purge can be found across Appalachia. Down to no more than a handful of mistresses on site. The final strike against the Order came on November 15, 2086. The raiders had set up a local base in Summersville, prepping for the assault. This preparation would in the end not be necessary. When Olivia returned home that night, she found Rachel talking to Eve DeVar, explaining that she had discovered what had happened. Rachel remembered the Siphon Holotape from Sugar Grove, and realized that in all the times that she had been missing, Olivia was handing off mission data to the raiders. Olivia killed the remaining mistresses on site, and presumably her own father. She set fire to her quarters in the mansion. As her mother was off on a mission at the time, she left a note explaining her actions, inviting her mother on the camping trip that she had canceled all those years before. Shannon found the destruction at the estate, and while she mourned the dead, she had one more mission to accomplish. She buried the dead, filed a note disbanding the Order of Mysteries, and set off to deal with her daughter. Brody Torrance returned to David Thorpe with the news of the assault, who gave him one final mission of meeting Olivia and cleaning up any loose ends. Shannon arrived at Seneca Rocks, where she found Olivia waiting for her. Olivia explained herself to her mother, leading her mother to the final realization that she would have to put her down or die trying. A final battle ensued, resulting in Olivia's victory. This victory was short-lived, as Brody emerged from the brush and executed Olivia. David Thorpe could never trust someone that had betrayed every one of their friends and family to gain power. He may have been a ruthless monster, but he wasn't a fool. Thus ends the story of the original Order of Mysteries, a body seeking the good that was shattered by the broken relationship between a mother and daughter. As for those who survived the ordeal, Brody Torrance presumably went on to the higher levels of the Raider organization, but there's no documentation on that. David Thorpe was among the raiders who refused to abandon their land, as the scorch washed over the terrain, becoming one of them as the last outposts fell. 2086 was another one of those pivotal years after the bombs. The rebuilt responders and the Appalachian Brotherhood of Steel cooperated to defeat the super mutants in the Battle of Huntersville. Harper's Ferry was wiped out by a scorched attack, and the Order of Mysteries fell. Had Olivia not betrayed the Order, there's just no telling how different the next 9 years could have been. But it is undoubtedly the case that the Mistresses were no longer a force keeping the raiders in check. Regardless of that, though the original Order is dead, we can join the ranks of the Mistresses of Mystery ourselves. One character that came up a lot early in the story that kind of faded into the background is Frederick Rivers, Shannon's husband, Olivia's father, and the engineer who made the lair of the Order of Mysteries possible. One final thing I want to mention about him is that in his answering some of Shannon's fan mail, he started correspondence with one of Shannon's most devoted fans, and a fan of the Unstoppables in general, Kent Connolly of Boston, Massachusetts. We can meet Kent in Good Neighbor in Fallout 4, where he lives 210 years after his last correspondence with Frederick Rivers, thanks to his ghoulification in the war. I want to mention one more thing here to explain a narrative choice I made. There is a potential discrepancy on the date of Olivia's adventure to Sugar Grove. Olivia said in 2086 that it was on her first solo mission 3 years ago, or 2083, while Shannon refers to Olivia visiting a derelict government bunker in 2084 with Rachel in tow. The fact that Rachel did discover Olivia's treachery says to me that she knew about the Siphon Holotapes, which would mean that she had seen them with Olivia. Mistaking 2 years in the past with 3 years in the past is a mistake I make all the time, if not to an even more extreme extent. 10 to 15-year-old movies feel like they were released a couple of years ago. As for the distinction between solo missions versus a mission with Rachel in tow, I think it's likely that this was Olivia's first mission as a senior partner, no longer traveling with her mother. That, combined with her general disregard for her sisters, leads me to believe that she might even remember this mission as solo. Another option is that Olivia revisited Sugar Grove with Rachel. I hope that this has explained my interpretation, and I fully acknowledge that I might be wrong. Anyway though, I think that's enough on the Mistresses of Mystery. If you want notifications when I launch these lore videos, you can follow me at Gaming with Maps on Twitter. If you appreciate what I do here and desire to assist me financially, you can sign up to be a patron on Patreon. In that vein, I want to thank my patrons Mesothelioma, 76 of Texas, and Shetland. There are links to both my Twitter and Patreon in the About page for this channel, and in the description. This has been the Irresolute Cartographer. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again next time.